Hello, hello, hello. How are y'all doing? All right. How's everyone's Easter weekend? That good, huh? Cool, cool, cool. What I wanted is a couple things, or what I wanted is a couple things today. But before we get going, any questions, thoughts? Nope. Okay.
We're all pretty quiet today.
Yeah, right?
Must have
Okay.
been a big weekend,
Let's tucker everyone out.
right?
Okay, so I wanted to just to go over just the process a little bit, and then I want to go over a little bit some deal analysis. Back of the napkin deal analysis, then we can answer some questions for that. But first, I wanted to kind of go over the whole process of the wholesale real quickly from start to finish. What are like the steps, the order, uh, and then we can talk about any questions that are in because we got some people that are in the middle of deals, and so they're the question I can tell they're a little bit on the iffy side, and so by the way, so yeah, me and Frank closed on that deal yesterday, or not yesterday, Friday, right? So that's awesome. Shout out to Frank. Dude's the man. Okay. And also Saul, which I don't see him, but we got this guy. We sent him the contract on Friday. He had his lawyer look it over. We made a change, and then where he's going to get things signed up. So that's going to be a big. That's going to be a pretty good assignment fee, assuming we find the buyer. So it's going to be pretty good. Okay. So I just wanted to go over the whole process just real quick, and feel free guys to chime in the middle, ask questions, because I think it's kind of good to kind of see the whole scope of things, and then we can talk about the deal analysis, and then we got a call today. We're at 11:30, 11:45. We're gonna call Kent, that same guy we that picked up the phone from our cold calling session we did on Friday. So we're gonna follow up with him today, and I've done some analysis. That 250 is actually a pretty good price range. There's Natalie. Okay. Nice. Okay. So let's see here. Perfect. All right. I'm glad you're able to get it, Nelly. That's good. Okay. So with just the quick processes, or what all look. So all starts with. I'm going to try to write with my pen on my computer. It doesn't super work very well, but it's okay. So all starts with. Come on. With the lead. Okay. So that's the first step. Okay. Then we have contact. So we actually have a discussion. Oh, come I got the right slower. So we make some sort of contact, and then deal analysis. So this is like we have a lead, whatever that is, notice of default, foreclosure. We make contact. So we're not doing deal analysis first, right? So we make contact. They are interested in selling. Awesome. So we do our deal analysis. And then is give or present. Come on. Oh my goodness. Give offer. So this is where the negotiations, this can take an hour, it can take 10 minutes, it can be weeks, months. This process here, like, because you're basically going back and forth as far as the offer, what they're looking at, what they're looking for, getting down to the root cause of the challenge. Okay. And then once they accept offer, and if they don't, then it's put into backup or follow up. Okay. So once they accept offer, or that's the next step, right? So they accept offer. Then it's email blasts, right? So email blast / marketing. Market, whatever. Okay. So we let our buyers know about this deal. Okay. So that could be phone calls, that could be email blasts, that could be stuff on social media, all of that stuff. Okay. Then we get here. Let me put it very bottom so almost see it one page better. So after we market it, we get offers, or we accept. So get and accept. Oh my goodness, can't even read that. Whatever. Get offers. You guys know what I'm talking about. Okay. And then paperwork. Come on, pen. This is terrible. Paperwork to title. So this is when this is where they pull. So you give them the rep sheet, you give them the assignment agreement, and this is where they pull title, they pull all of that stuff, right? And then we have from this point on, once we have a buyer, we have a seller, we sent all the paperwork to title. Now it's just kind of wait and just follow up. So just making sure that everyone, the title company has everything they need. If the title company needs something from the buyer or from the seller, you make sure that happens. But mostly after this point, it's pretty much a done deal. I mean, obviously things have fallen apart, but assuming it's a good deal, the buyer's ready to go, the seller's ready to go. And then we have follow up, and then close, get paid. So this is a simpler or simpler. Yeah, that's fine. Making up words. That's fine. So this is just the order of operations. Now, sometimes things may a little vary. Maybe you send the paperwork to title early because you know it's a good big deal, or you don't have a ton of time for closing. So like this can be moved around before you get the offers or as you accept. But this is going to be basically your workflow, right? So we get a lead and we contact them, phone call, knock on the doors, mailer, ad, something on those lines. And then we do a deal analysis only after we have actually had contact with the seller. Now, this may vary a little bit different when it's on market, because then your initial conversation is, here's my offer, because you're dealing with agents and things like that. So that's a whole nother ball of wax. So, but you know that, but you know for sure this property is for sale because it's on the market. right? So it's okay to do a little bit of deal analysis there. That's no problem. But as far as off-market stuff, you want to make sure that they actually want to have a conversation about selling before you even do any deal analysis. Okay? Give, accept, email blast, marketing. Any questions about the process in itself? So for example, where me and Saul are on that property, we're on right here as far as accepting the offer. So as soon as he comes back and signs it, then we go into marketing to our buyers, email blast, get things accepted, and so on and so forth. Now I understand like a lot of people kind of get hung up on certain parts of the step, like, well, do I, and wholesaling, if you're not, you don't even have to be at the close most of the time unless you're doing like a double close, which this one looks like me and Sal are going to have to, but that's okay.
Hey, Jared.
Yes.
Um, so I know that there's a difference between like a quick analysis and like a more complete one. Like,
Yes.
what kind of numbers are you running? If it's just like a super quick, how do I make this offer? Because
Mhm.
usually I'll go into the iOS and I'll just plug in like whatever kind of numbers those are giving me and like
Yeah.
what things have sold. And then I mean, tell me if I'm wrong. And then after that, I'll go through
No,
like
you're good.
the rehab analysis sheet and pull some more comps. And I mean, like, what's your process in getting a quick, dirty number as opposed to like really combing through all comps and
Yeah.
comparables?
So once you get good at it, like at first, you're going to spend some more time on the quick analysis, right? Just because you're learning what to look for and everything. I usually don't want to spend more than 10 to 15 minutes on a quick analysis. So it's the quick analysis where that happens is like before I'm giving the offer. So it happens here. Okay. Now, if you want to do more of a deeper dive, that would be between oh, right here would be like a deep analysis if you want. Like if I'm going to flip it, like, yeah, you bet I'm doing a deep analysis, right? So, deep, deep analysis. All right. And then, where are we at? Oh yeah. So as far as a quick analysis, like I do like to use Renaissance iOS for my analysis because it does give it the sheet is really quick. It's just ready to go. Fill in some information, and then I can play with the numbers, tweak back and forth, and then figure things out. But for the long analysis, that's when you actually find out like real numbers. So in the quick analysis, you're estimating what the rehab is going to be, maybe by per square foot, or you're going through like the repair estimator, kind of figuring that out. You're getting rough idea as far as the ARV using maybe third-party websites. But at this point, this is where you would do like maybe get quotes. And again, if it's a deal you're going to wholesale, I rarely even do this part, right? If it's still just going to wholesale, like it, it it looks pretty good. And if there's deeper challenges, like buyers usually tell me. So then if we have to renegotiate, then we'll renegotiate. We have to. But the deep analysis is like when you're actually getting a contractor out there to give you a real estimate what the repairs are going to cost. You're getting an agent, multiple agents to give you some CMAs, so they can tell you what the ARV, what the after price value or after repair value of the home is going to be. So you're getting like more solid numbers at this point, and then you can renegotiate if you have to get it, if needed. So does that answer that question, Jenny? I don't know if I.
Yeah, it does. So like when an agent does CMAs,
Mhm.
is that more information that you would get in plugging numbers into the iOS system?
Um, yes. A great question, Sal. We'll get to that here in a second. So as far as the CMA goes, it's going to give you more accurate information because like when you're pulling comps from third-party websites like Renatus iOS, Deal Machine, ProStream, or just name it out there, right? Or even just looking on Zillow, because we're a non-disclosure state where the state doesn't tell the third-party websites what the property actually sold for. So these websites, these programs are like trying to figure out by like how much was the loan on the property, and then other analysis data points to kind of figure out what the property was sold for. So it gets pretty close, but not always right.
So the still prices on the iOS is not completely accurate.
Correct. Yep.
Oh,
It's
interesting.
it's all guesstimated, and that's true for any third-party website.
Yeah, Jared.
Yeah.
So what about when you don't get like close like accurate ARB, right?
Yeah.
What will be best, to discount on the ARB that you have, like a 10% or 20%, something like that?
Wait, sorry. I didn't quite. I missed the question again. So what about the ARV?
So for the ARB, like Jenny says, right? When you go to a third party, and since we are in a non-disclosure state,
Yeah.
so most likely you might get an accurate or close to an accurate ARB, right? But possibly not.
Yeah.
So it will be good, like to just to be conservative, like get a 10% off.
Oh, so like reduce your ARV to be
Reduce,
conservative?
yes.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'm a fan of when you're running your numbers to if you're on the conservative side, I think that's great. That's fine. Like the only oops I want is the oops I made more money, you know? So yeah, I think that's fine. If you want to, I don't typically just do where I make most of my conservative side things is mostly in the rehab costs. So I'm assuming it's going to cost more than what it might actually cost. But if you're doing like I want to be exact numbers, but maybe my ARV I'm putting 10% lower or whatever, then that's fine too. Does that answer that question, Frankie, or did I miss
Yes,
it?
yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Perfect.
I couldn't read what was after the email blast. It was get something an
Oh.
offer.
Sure. Oh, get offer accepted. So you
Okay.
market it to your buyers and then you get and accept offers. I think that's probably why it was a little bit.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah, you betcha. So get and accept offers, send paperwork to title, follow up, and close, get paid. Okay. Now, because we can do deal analysis using third-party websites, is like that's what I normally do, but not everyone has access to third-party websites, right? So today I wanted to go over a little bit about back at the napkin numbers. Where are we at?
Well, when you get an offer accepted from the owners, so you send the offer, you marketing the deal right before, or you can also do the paperwork, like send the paperwork from the offer accepted, from the rep
You
sign up
can.
from the owner.
Yes. So you
The
can
title
send
company.
the paperwork at this point after offer accepted to title company as far as the buyer's concerned, for the rep sees they start pulling up title. And that's good, especially if you have any concerns about having a clean title, like there might be more liens than what the seller's saying. So yes, you could definitely do it before you send it out and you get buyers and things like that. The reason why I say like sending the paperwork after you get your buyer all locked up is because with it's about one out of every 3 contracts that I get that's we close on. So I want to make sure that we're going to close on this property before I start sending a bunch of deals to title company and have them do the work without them actually doing it. And honestly, they would be fine with it. Like if I send them, I do enough business with them and send enough business with them, RE title or GT title that they wouldn't, send that big of a deal. But I like to keep them excited when I call or when I send a message or whatever. Like, oh, good, Jared's contacted me. That means I'm making money. Versus like, okay, Jared's contacted me. Yeah, I mean, we'll see if this thing actually makes me money or not. You know what I mean? It's a different mindset. So, um, does that make sense, guys? because title company needs probably about 5 business days to do all the title work that they need to do before closing. So maybe you're marketing it and it's been a week and now you have a week left to close, and so they have 5 business days. So maybe you have a couple buyers that are still are you're kind of going back and forth with them. They're still doing some research on it, doing their deal analysis. Okay, cool. Then maybe that's a good point to send the paperwork, the rep sheet to the title so they can start pulling the stuff they need to pull to make sure it's a good deal. And then once you get the assignment paperwork, then you're good to go. So there are scenarios where I send it to the title company before I get a buyer accepted. Does that make sense?
Yes. So basically, if you have if you have a bunch of deals going on, maybe not a good idea. Send them all over, like you said, until you get the buyer.
Yes.
But if you have like 1 or 2 of these, that might work, right?
Yeah. I mean, well, it depends, right? So like, if you're doing a ton, like the title company, as long as you're closing, like they'll take care of you, right? So with like with title companies and this is just more of a me thing. Like, I always want to make sure that the professional I work with are always like stoked to hear from me or talk. You know what I mean? Because that pays dividends in full. So I usually wait until I have a buyer or or it's 5 days, but there's still prospects out there. If it's like 5 days beforehand, I might wait until the fourth day before or whatever. Because the title company, they can close fast if needed, right? But if it's like a little iffy, I'm not sure we're gonna buy it or something to find a buyer, then yeah, then I'll have to extend, or then I don't typically send it out to the title company if it looks like it's not going to close. And after that first week, you usually have a general idea what it looks like for most deals. There's always differences, so that makes sense.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
Okay. All right. Phenomenal. So with just quick like back of the napkin analysis, right? So it all starts with the ARV. The after repair value. That is like your base number where you're going to minus everything out of. So coming up with the ARV for the quick analysis, right? Now, if you have agents that can pull them up, like that's awesome. If you have an agent ready to go, but again, with professionals, I don't like to send them a bunch of work without actually closing anything or having like a really good, chance of it closing, because they'll stop taking your calls if you're like, hey, can you see me on this one? Do see me on this one? See me on this one, without actually closing any deals with them. That can only go so far. So I try to keep it where it's limited to. So if they are going to do a CMA, it's like I'm pretty confident on this one, right? So, but before I get agents involved, I'll go through, or if you have access to MLS, then even better. But so Zillow can give you third-party websites. This is just rough. Don't like the Zillow one that I'm not even. I mean, I'm almost ashamed to even put it in there. But then this is like the third-party websites. That's when you can pull up. So we have like Deal Machine. There's so many out there, right? There's this gazillion. Renatus iOS, PropStream, all those websites can kind of give you some rough ideas on what the ARV is going to be. But this is just kind of get the initial start, okay, what the after repair value is going to be. If your agent's pulling comps for you, here's some things that you want to make sure that they understand. If they haven't done a flip themselves, the comps they're pulling, it has to be sold. So it has to be a sold comp. I can't tell you how many times that an agent has sent me a CMA and it has like, and that has listed like active properties as a comparable. Like I can list this property for $1 and be inactive, or I can list it for $2 billion and it's still being active. It doesn't mean no one's going to buy it. Like the market is the best teacher in the world, and I can try to sell anything for $2 trillion. Doesn't mean anyone's going to buy it for $2 trillion. Does that make sense? So that's why we want to have active listing. I even had when agents send me a bunch of expired listings as comps. Like that's the opposite of a comp, because no one bought it for that price. What are you talking about? That's like, that shows me that that's definitely not the price point for something like that. And it needs to be like rehab properties, right? So sold. Occasionally, if it's hard to find comps, if it's in like kind of out there weird area or it's a unique property, then maybe you can look up active listings to kind of give a rough idea, but it's nothing to write home for. So going for sold, going for after repair, so as if it's already been done. So a lot of agents are really confused when you ask them for CMA if they're not already in this type of business already, as far as like doing flips or anything at all. They just don't. It's like, oh, that's why a lot of with that being said, that's why a lot of times people they'll talk to an agent, and the agent will run their CMA because like, oh yeah, I need to sell my house. Okay, great. And they're basically doing the same CMA as an ARV, but they're not factoring in like condition. It's crazy how often that happens. It's insane how often that happens. And now we have the sellers. I'm going on a tangent here, but now you have the seller on. They're thinking the house is going to sell for 400,000, but really, it's worth like 250 because it needs so much work. Like after repair sale is 400, so they list it for 400. They get a bunch of lowball offers when those low balls are actually real offers. So it just puts so much more time on the seller, a lot more disappointment, a lot more frustrations. So whenever I hear like I went to an agent, like, oh gosh, I mean, and I'm not generalization. There's some really good agents out there that can really guide people in tough situations like that. But we're talking about the masses, like that's just general. So yeah, tangents. So we're figuring out the ARV. Now let's run some numbers here. What? All right, we can do some. So we have ARV. Now let's just say it's going to be 500,000 as ARV. Okay. Now obviously, if you're using like deal calc or analyst calculator, it's gonna be a little easier. But we're just doing cowboy math, back of the napkin analysis here. Okay. So that's the ARV. That's where minus everything. If I had to make an offer, let's say I went into this neighborhood and the properties it didn't need, like, maybe it wasn't like a complete utter gut job, but it still needed quite a bit of work. If I can get about $150,000 gap from purchase and ARV, there's probably something there. So if I get $150,000, $200,000 difference, then I know it's going to be there's some potential there for a deal. So for example, my offer or starting price point, and there's a reason we have to kind of guesstimate what your offer is going to be. So, or purchase price, let me do that. It's probably a little easier to understand. Oops. So purchase price, we'll just say 350 for now, and that'll change. But there's a reason why we need to figure that out. Okay. So if we buy this property for 350, and we have there's the money. So there's money costs. So we have money costs, holding costs. Oh my goodness. Come on, right. Anyways, so money. If you're doing your analysis as if you're a flipper. So I'm going to say what we are going to do, what the rehab will cost us, but that's still going to be the end buyer because we're planning on wholesale. They're like, it's just for, conversation. They like to, that's just how I think, right? So what would a flipper what would a flipper do? So flipper bought this for 350,000. You want to use hard money numbers. So what is the average interest rate and points up front for hard money on average? Now there's obviously lenders that are going to give a little higher, a little less. Okay, yeah. So Bruce in the comment 12 and 2. So what does that 12 and 2 mean? Can someone explain a little bit what that is?
Isn't the 2%, anytime you take out the loan, then you're going to be charged 2% of that loan, and then the 12% is per year.
Correct. So the 12% is the annualized interest. So interest over the course of 12 months is 12, and for most hard money lenders is 12%. And the 2 points is like just to create the loan, they're going to charge an extra 2% of the total loan. So not over the year, but just a flat rate, like that's going to be 2%. And that could either be done, sometimes they'll do it front, sometimes they'll put it on the back end, which is how I like to do it. And sometimes they'll have payments, but I don't like to do hard money loans if I have to have monthly payments. I'd rather just pay it on the back end, personally. Does that make sense, guys? Okay.
So putting it on the back end, it means you don't have to have the loan, you just pay it when you're close, because you're
right. So if I got like $100,000 loan and they had 2 points, then I'd pay back the interest plus 102, because 2% of 100,000 is 2,000. So yeah, I would just pay it. It just gets added to the loan. Come on.
got it.
And ideally, the flips are going to be quicker than 4 months or so. But I run my numbers at the whole time is 6 months. Okay. So, and typically hard money lenders will lend on 80% of purchase. This is average, because that's what your average flipper, your average buyer is going to be looking at. Sometimes they're going to have better numbers or more expensive, but which means they can offer more or they have to offer less, depending on their circumstances of what it makes sense for them. That's why you can see people like their numbers are so far off from each other, but maybe because the contractor charges them more or less, or maybe they're doing the work themselves, or maybe they're using their own money, so they're not worried about 12% interest on it. There's a little bit more spread on it, right? Even though the ROI goes down, but still, they're good with that. So 80% of purchase. So what are we looking at for? So 350 times 80%. So what? Oh, come on. So 200. So the loan in this scenario, oh, come on, because the money cost is going to be 280. That's supposed to be 2. Let me. 280. Oh my goodness, this pin's going to make me lose hairs. Okay, so 280,000. So if you get calculators out, we're going to times it by 8%, because if it's 6 months, 12% interest, if it's annualized, that's effectively paying 1% each month. So if I have this loan and I held it for a year, I would be paying 12% on that. But if I held it for 8 months, I'd be paying 8% on it. So if my whole time is going to be 6 months, that's what I'm planning for. So 6%, and then plus the 2 points up front, which is, just percent, is 8. So I times whatever the loan is by 8%. That's how much it cost me if I held onto this loan for 6 months. Does that make sense? Because this is where I lose people. Like, we can do it individually, and maybe I wouldn't lose so many people. But
So, Jared, that means it's 22,400. Did I do that right?
For the 22,400 exactly, right? So the money cost is 22,400. You're 100% right. That's 8% off of 280. Now we can do like, okay, what's 6%, then 2% more for the points, and then do that. Yeah, okay, that's fine. But 8%, right? Now we have holding costs. So holding, what does that mean? What's holding costs? It's involved in holding costs?
Monthly cost to like electricity, water, gas, insurance, mortgage. If you're paying that, if
Right.
that needs to be paid to the bank while you're there.
Exactly. So some hard money lenders will have monthly payments. Some won't. If you do subject to, those monthly payments have to still be paid during this time, right? So you still got to figure that in as well. So holding costs is when we figure it out about, and again, when you're doing how much is it going to cost to have the power on, have the sewer on, all of that stuff. If you're not sure how much it costs, just keep in mind, like, you want to maybe by 50% or just double in general what your own home expenses are to give a rough idea. And then you're going to, you're going to bump it up because your contractors, they don't care. They don't care that the door is open, the heat's on, and it's 30 degrees outside, and they're just going back and forth. Maybe the contractor understands and gets that, but his guys maybe don't because he's not there 24/7, right? I worked in construction jobs before, and so yeah, I get that. So yeah, it's going to be a little more expensive. So over for utilities, let's see here. So probably you put in 250 a month times 6. So right around $1,500 for utilities. So hold it for a month. Goodness gracious, it's an expensive month. And this is like a maybe 1,800 square foot house, 2,000 square foot house, something like that. Okay. So, and then insurance, looking at 2,100 or so. It really kind of varies on the property where you're at. So when you're looking at holding costs, right, we're looking at 3,600, and assuming there's no payments. Okay. Does that make sense? Oops. Now I haven't done any the closing costs too. So closing on the buy, and then closing on the sell. Okay. We buy the property, there's closing costs. We sell the property, there's closing cost. You can figure in your title closing costs. It's going to be about 1%, but I'd like to do 1.5. If there's no agents involved, then that's it. So I'm going to do 1.5% times 350. So 1.5%. So that's going to be 5,200, and it'll probably be a little less than that. Like I said, it's probably going to be closer to 1%. But again, I'd rather be surprised on made more money. We haven't done rehab yet either. So then we have so when we sell the property, we're going to be selling the property what, this price, right? At 500,000. Also, I'm going to go agent because that's going to be different. Okay. So the closing cost for 500, if we do the still 1.5%. Now, if the buyer's willing to pay some of the closing costs or they do their half, that's fine. Great. You made more money. But if in your negotiations with the buyer, like the actual end buyer, it's supposed to be a 7, by the way. I don't know why I did that way. Then you can, it's still going to be good. Okay. The agent fees. So typically the seller's agent, sorry, the buyer's agent, because this is when you're going to sell the property or the flipper's selling the property. Their average cost for like the seller, the buyer's agent, the buyer's agent is about 2.5%. And then most of the people, the seller, the person that lists the property for you will charge another 2.5%. when it's like a regular deal, like you can list, there's so many different ways to list your properties on the cheap where it's like under 1%. So I'll put my listing cost for agent is 1%, and then the buyer's agent is 2.5. So it makes total agent fees 3.5%. Does that make sense? How I did that? So 2.5 for the buyer's agent and then 1% for the seller's agent. Because there's plenty of ways to list the property on the cheap. So 3.5% times 500,000. Oops, hang on. Or 500,000 minus 3.5% is 17,500. Okay. So we have closing costs, agent costs. We are missing the rehab. And this is not necessarily like the order doesn't really matter. It's supposed to be an H. Rehab. If this is like a 2,000 square foot house, depending on if you again, this is just shooting from the hip kind of numbers, but you can do anywhere from $30 per square feet to $50 per square feet to figure out a rough idea as far as rehab costs. Okay, we'll just do $40 per square feet. I still think it's a little high, but I like to when I'm doing my analysis, I'll usually go to repair estimator and just throw in the numbers in there pretty quick. But just for fast, quick numbers, right? So we're looking at this for this type of house. We're going to actually 30. That seems crazy because it depends on.
Jared,
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, Jared.
Yes, please.
So this is kind of a rough idea of what you would structure a pro forma to give to like a money lender.
For a money lender, I would have a lot. It'd be a lot nicer. This is like to figure out what my offer is going to be, right? So this is like
you're kind of. I mean, right? these are kind of the numbers that are thrown at them anyway, so they know what they're getting into, right?
Yes, exactly. So this is like because not everyone has the third-party websites. That's why I'm kind of like, this is what to do it if you don't have like a calculator that can do that. But this is, and even if you have those, those third-party websites, if you don't know what's all involved as far as costs and things like that to do a deal, you can get stuff kind of like I don't understand why people are keep on rejecting it, but maybe you forgot about the agent fees and closing, and so like it just doesn't leave enough spread on, so you have to renegotiate. So it helps you to understand like where the costs are going, and if you can negotiate certain things, like like okay, I'm not going to pay your agent fee, for example, if you're buying it on the market or something like that, or you can kind of throw in those type of negotiations in there, but. But yes, this is basically we're doing a pro forma on how much everything's gonna cost, right? So
Jared, real quick, will you ever do maybe one of these calls? Do how you actually do your pro forma professionally? Because I've seen it done so many different ways, and I don't know a way that I like it the best.
Sure.
Because that's huge when you have to present that to the lender, whether they're going to take it or not.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, and you're presenting similar things. Well, I guess to the buyer because you have to be a lot of estimates but yeah, it's similar to this presenting to the buyer, but it's a little bit different than the lender. Lender wants to see a lot more. That's if we're presenting to a lender, it's like you have the contractor's gone to the house and actually give you an estimate. Like this is how much she said it's going to cost, and so you have like real numbers to show for the deal, right? So the rehab cost, and there's one more thing that we're missing. So we have ARV, but we have purchase price, money cost, holding cost, closing cost times 2, agent cost, rehab. What are we missing? This is probably the most important item line that you never want to forget.
My money.
That's right. Profit. Profit for the flipper and profit for the wholesaler. Okay. So depending on the deal, right? If I can, when I'm looking at numbers, right? If I can get the flipper on average about 10% of the ARV for profit, that's usually pretty good. So if the profit for the flipper is going to be 50,000, right? And then I'm never going to look at a deal unless I'm going to make a minimum of 10. So total profit's going to be 60,000 that we need to have on this deal. Then what we do, my little trusty calculator that's being weird. You guys can't see it, but it's okay. Here it is. Okay. So we add all this stuff up. So we're gonna add up 350,000 as purchase price plus 22,400 for the money cost. Oops. Oh man, I got too many zeros at one time. Gosh, dang it. Okay. Anyways, 350 plus 22,400 for the money plus the holding costs. We got 3,600 plus the closing cost for the first go around is 5,250 plus the other closing cost is 7,500 plus the agent fees is 17,500 plus rehab is 60,000 plus profit is 60,000 altogether. So it's going to cost this deal $500. Oh, where's my pen? It's going to cost this deal $526,000. So if we bought this deal as is, if we minus, or like at the 350, so we minus 26,000 from the profit, which is not, I mean, we're not going to have that. It's not okay. So the profit for the flipper would be like 24,000 and yours would be, you'd be making 10. So yeah, this is at 350. This doesn't make sense. So we would have to lower our asking price by $30,000 for it to make sense. So our offer price, so this is the whole point of it. So I added all this stuff up and got 526, but when we sell it, we're just going to get 500. So I'm not going to make that much profit because we're $26,000 over. So my purchase price needs to be, I'll say rounded up, $30,000 less. So my purchase price needs to be $320 to make it, to get these numbers for the profit wise, for $50,000 for profit for the flipper and $10,000 for us. So we would need to get under contract for $320, and then the flipper will buy it at $330, right? Because we made our 10,000 difference. Does that make sense? Where what I did with the discrepancy as far as like, because we add all those numbers up and it's more than the purchase price or the ARV. So that just means we had to lower the purchase price. Because now if we added up all the numbers, we're at 496 or 490, 496. Supposed to be 9. Oh my gosh. I hate writing on this thing. Is that making sense, guys?
Yes, it's making sense to me. If you
After as many times as I've seen this done, this is the first time it's actually made sense to me.
Okay. Well, good. I'm glad at least it's finally making sense, right? So that's where that's the whole point. So we do have to kind of guesstimate what our purchase price is going to be, right? Just because we need to find out what the money costs are going to be. We need to find out what the closing costs are going to be. So there is a little bit of a guesswork when you first started to do the just on the napkin, on the back of the napkin numbers, right? But that's when we, okay, cool. I just need to adjust it. And obviously, if our purchase price is now 320, I can go through all those numbers with the hard money costs and all that stuff, and see that we're actually going to make more. We probably could even raise the offer from 320, like by a couple thousand, because we're not paying as much interest or whatnot. But I would just typically okay, cool. My max offer is 320, and so I'm probably going to be able to make it maybe 115, and the flipper's price will make 50 or so. So yeah, that's like quick. These are the factors you're factoring in when you're running your numbers for like a flip wise. Any questions, thoughts?
Maybe you already addressed this, but when you're comparing this breakdown to the third party like iOS,
Yeah.
not iOS. So if it says that the price would be higher than yours, like, is that because they didn't add in the profits for the flipper and you?
Maybe. It kind of varies. So okay. So for example, let's see here. Let's do a quick, because I can do this pretty quick, and so just to so you kind of see the. No, I don't want that. All right, here we are. Okay. So let's just do a quick little analysis here. And we're just going to make up some numbers. We'll just do, okay, this one I haven't even, this is the one that so I haven't done an official one on this. So let's just pretend this is going to be the property we're talking about, okay? So I'm going to create analysis here, and we can do a whole nother video on doing analysis on these type of websites to give you a rough idea. But this is just kind of show the comparison as far as like what that actually looks like. So let's just say our initial analysis was like 350 for purchase price. So still have to do the guesswork. Our closing price are going to be 1.5, which is point here, point or half point there, 1 point there. That adds that up. Again, this is like, we'll go into detail on Renata West a little later if you guys want, so no biggie. But so money costs, what do we say? Was that 280 was going to be how much it was, right? For what the lending would be if we bought at 250 for 80% of that. So 2 points and 12% interest. Okay. The rehab cost we said was going to be like what, 60? And oh, we didn't factor in taxes. That's pretty bad. Shame. Property taxes is what I'm referring to. 6 months hold, 3.5% for realtor fees, and we're gonna sell that at 500. And download this, and I'll show you what it comes up with. So this is almost exactly what I was. Yeah, this is exactly what I said we would be making. Because remember, it was like 2,400 over. When we added all their numbers up from the 350, it was like 2,400. So the profit was 34,000. If we bought it at 350, the profit is 34,000. We add it all up and it's 526,000 or whatever. So yeah, this is literally almost exactly what I came up with. On the back of the napkin is what this did. It was quicker, it's easy. And speaking of performa and showing your lender, like the Renata iOS has like a one sheeter like this. Really nice to show them. It's organized, it's all together. We didn't put the square footage in there, so that's why this stuff's not in there. But yeah, how long it's going to take, what the purchase price is, the interest rate, all that stuff. So now if we go back, because we said what we're going to do like 2 or 320, right? Is what we said. So if we go back and then we can change. We're not going to change anything on it, actually. Let's just see what it says. There we are. So this is It's like I've done this a couple of times. So what did I say? I said the flipper would still make 50, and then we would probably wholesale it for 15 after we broke it down to 320. So this would be a wholesale fee of 15,000 because this is total profit. Doesn't break down wholesale profit when you're doing like this. Okay. So total profit is 65,000. We're going to wholesale it for 15. So the end flipper is still going to make 50.
What did you change numbers on that to get that different?
I just changed
outcome?
the purchase prices. All I changed.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Okay.
So it actually be a little bit more because we're not paying as much interest because we're buying it at less. But it's almost exactly what I was saying beforehand when we're looking at that. So yeah, the numbers are pretty close from the the calculators like this versus this just on the napkin, behind the napkin style of figuring out your numbers.
So I didn't use the deal analysis, but like when you're looking just at the property itself on iOS, when it says does that calculator calculate with the like if you were to rent it or if you were to fix and flip those things? Does that make sense?
So we ran numbers as we're going to flip it.
Okay.
And then like for rental, that's another analysis that you'd want to do, which we can another time go over a little more deep into, but Renaissance iOS has a rental option too, right? So I can just create a new one and then do I can click on buy and hold or lease option or whatever, right? And then do the numbers accordingly, which will ask for the rents and it'll give you a pro forma as far as what it'll work as a rental.
I've never used this. This thing's awesome.
Yeah, yeah. Wow. This is like I love Deal Machine. Like I'm really liking it, but as far as pulling up like the numbers new quickly, like I still use Renaissance iOS.
Yeah,
but like Renaissance really iOS has like a repair estimator too, so you can go into like the square footage.
Yes, I've used that. That's really, really good.
And
that does include labor costs, right? I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, it does. It includes labor costs. So it's whatever the local like Home Depots would charge for certain things, right? So like the roof or whatever, it does factor in labor costs as well. So so you and literally if you're not sure what to do, or like it's like what do I do? You can just go through down here and like the roof's actually is pretty good. Oh, it does need some gutters. I can click on, and we do need some landscaping, so full landscaping for yard. That's like, that's like if it's really, really bad and big. But you can just scroll through. Oh, it does have septic. I'm interior painting. It's going to cost me that.
You feel like those numbers are pretty accurate, Jared? Sorry.
Yes. Well, it depends what kind of flip. If you're doing Nordstrom flip, no. And that's what Brock was saying too when he was looking at these numbers. Like for Target and Walmart, like things are spot on, but Nordstrom, like it's going to cost more for the rehab. So
would you just add a percentage onto that to like the overall cost?
Yeah,
because I know he goes off of like $40 to $45 a square foot for a higher end.
Right. Correct. Yeah, so he goes off of that, but so I've never done a Nordstrom flip. Like actually, like I've wholesaled many of them, but I've never actually done a Nordstrom flip. I've done a ton of Walmart, ton of Target style flips, but I've never done it. So like as far as like numbers go for this for Target down, they're pretty accurate. Now it may be, I would say that the overall end number is pretty spot on, but it'll be like maybe for paint, my guy will be a little less, and then maybe a carpet, my guy's gonna be a little more. So it kind of it evens out for the most part. So not every single item number or line is spot on, but for the most part, in my personal experience from the guys that I use, the end number is pretty darn close. But that's it. And then when you're all said and done, it gives you an itemized sheet of everything that, what the total costs are. So I can save this. And then I just clicked on a few things, but just to give you guys an idea, to show you, I don't know why downloads like multiple times, but it'll have like this. And then, so each thing, I'm gonna click on two things, but whatever. But it'll say what it is, what the square foot is for that. And then if it's price per just one lump sum or just square foot, this is what the costs are. And then total repairs. So this is good for initial estimates and whatnot. So if that makes sense. shoot. So it's 12 o'clock. I'm gonna call Kent, the guy we talked to on Friday right now. If you guys need to jump off, that's fine. I'm gonna keep the call going. If anyone wants to hear me have that conversation with the seller that we talked to the other day, to kind of lock up the deal or get things done. So with your good question, Alvin, on holding costs and taxes, I'll just look it up. So either on the county records or like sometimes Zillow will have it or Redfin will have it in there. So if I already have that website up, I can go find the taxes and then divide that by 2 because it's for 6 months, right? So it's going to be prorated. So it's going to be about that. That's where I pulled that information up. So yeah, any other questions before I could call this other guy and then the seller Kent? Let me make sure that the audio for the computer is on too.
I mean, I do have a question, but I
Yeah,
think it's gonna
please.
take a little longer. Because I went to go see a property this weekend and I was gonna put in an offer, but they can't take less than 250 because they need to like pay whoever they need to pay off. So I'm curious about how to question seller financing for this one. So
Yeah.
yeah, just how to begin that conversation because they're open to that.
So they are open to seller financing, or you want to see if
That's
okay.
yeah, they're open to seller financing.
So how would you run the numbers with seller financing versus like doing the cash, right?
Yeah.
So as far as the numbers go, because if the exit strategy is still a flip, instead of the money cost is what changes. That's it. So instead of like 12% and then 2 points, it's if you got it seller financing for 5%. So you're just doing it by 5%. Which if you're holding it for 6 months, for example, then I would just times it by half that because it's 6 months. So 2.5. So for $500,000 property with seller financing at 5%, we would actually be, if we only did it for 6 months, we'd only be paying 2.5%. So we would be paying for 500,000, like 12,500 versus hard money, which would have been times 8%, right? Because we talked about this 6%, then plus 2. So we're looking at paying $40,000 versus 12,500. So just by doing the seller financing opens up quite a bit, 28,000 or 27,500 just by opening up seller financing. So almost 30 grand.
Yeah.
Just by having seller financing. So that means, that maybe your offer goes up to that much because that's what they need, or goes up a little bit more, or whatever that the case may be.
Yeah.
Also, having seller financing, if it's longer terms, gives you different options as far as your exit strategy, because then you can do a wraparound, sell it. You can your buyer, especially if you have long term, your buyer's pull will increase too, because there are plenty of guys that want to keep it as a, like, they'll fix it up and then keep it as a rental. And if you have a decent interest rate, then they're like, oh yeah, that's great. So maybe this isn't a great flip, but this is a great fix and hold, because you negotiated a really good seller financing longer terms, like at least 5 years. Then the buyers will be more apt to look at it, versus like, this is a terrible flip, not going to work. And so
I just need to redo my offer, and then I guess there's the seller financing addendum that I would need to add.
Yeah, that's because on the market, right?
Yeah, this one's on the market. I'm working with agents still, but
yeah, which is fine. There's no problem there. And finding out if there's a mortgage or not will vary on your offer too, right? So if you're doing just regular subject to or an actual just seller financing, that's gonna.
Yeah, just seller financing. I don't think they're open to subject to.
Well, is there a mortgage on the property? Because there's. So that's a question that because it doesn't matter whether it's subject to or not, or excuse me, whether they're willing to sell or financing or not. But part of that's going to be subject to if there's a mortgage on it.
Okay, gotcha.
If that makes sense.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay. Alrighty. Yeah. So if you guys need a bell, that's fine. I'm gonna sharing option. Make sure. I don't know why it like automatically like doesn't play off the computer audio, which is a little annoying. Okay. Oh, here we go. Nope. Let's try this. Defense. Nope. There it is. Okay. All right, cool. All right, we're gonna call Mr. Kent here. So this guy, if you remember right, he wanted to sell his property, or excuse me, we called him and the address that we called him was not even the address that he ever owned. But he did have another property he was looking to sell. So let's give Kent a call.
Hello.
Hey, Kent, this is Jared. How's it going?
Okay.
Okay, we spoke Friday, after afternoon around this time. Does that ring the bells about the property you have
Yeah.
in Santa Clara?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Did I catch you at a bad time?
Yeah. I'm at physical therapy right now.
Oh shoot. Okay, gotcha. Uh, when when is that going to be? End. I can just call you back then. If I'm available.
I'm probably going to be a couple of hours here.
A couple hours. Here, let me.
Yeah, before I'm home.
Let me check my schedule real quick. Then I'll let you. Yeah, back to. What if I called you around 2
That'd be
o'clock or
fine.
that'd be work? Okay, great. I'll call
Yeah.
you back at 2 then. Okay, awesome.
Okay. Bye.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. All right, bye.
2 o'clock his time, right?
Oh, snap. That's right. Good, good. No, it's a.
He was in California,
Right.
which would be 3 o'clock your time.
Good point. We'll leave it at 2 for now. I'll probably call him back at 3. Oh yeah. Okay. Awesome. Okay. Oh, that'll work. Any other questions before we call it a call? Call it a call. Call it a day. Okay, just real quick on sales. I was reading the comments here. So how do you determine the amount of repairs based on what the seller tells you what needs to repair? So if I haven't seen the property, I assume it's going to be like a gut job. And so if I'm doing the repairs off of like the Renatus iOS, I'll pretty much click almost everything, not like too crazy, but like if it needs a roof, it needs all this stuff, it's itemized. Run my numbers according to that. But what I would used to do is like when I go to the property, I would have that list out or had it written down what item numbers were, and I would just as I'm walking the property, I would just scratch out the ones that didn't need, like, oh, that kitchen, oh, they just refurbished that kitchen, looks phenomenal, you know, or oh yeah, the roof looks great, don't have to do roof. Oh yeah, good thing I put in the AC unit's terrible. So, and then right then and there, like you'll get to the point where like right then and there, I just minus those numbers and like, okay, cool, my max offer went higher. Let's see if I can get what my original offer was, but I know my max offer just increased by that much. But and that, or just doing $30 per square foot, depending on if it's a Nordstrom or Walmart or Target. Okay, sweetness. All right, guys. Well, I appreciate y'all, and let's get to those MMAs. Just money making activities. Love it.
Thanks, Jared.
Thanks.
Love it, guys. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.